But that, yeah, that comes downstream. Right now, I'm trying to get from the city of Milpitas the permission to move forward on this.
I mean, at some point you're going to want to, I want to put a post here, I want to put a
At some point, I would want to do that. That comes after.
station somewhere else.
That comes after I get permission from the property owners and after I get money to actually do the design work. So I'm not concerned about where the heck I'm going to put the pole, frankly, because 60 to 90 feet gives me a lot of fluff. Plus, we can, you know, zigzag and move around things pretty easily. In fact, there's a spot coming through the Great Mall. There's a big building here, which is otherwise known as the theater complex, and then there's like 15, 20 feet away, there's another big building, and there's just this narrow walkway from the back parking lot into the plaza for the theaters. And I would really like to bring the PRT right through that narrow area, slowing those vehicles that were going 30 miles per hour down to probably in the neighborhood of 10 to 15 miles per hour as they wind their way through that tight, narrow zone and these tight turns. Again, it'll be a neat ride once we really get this up. Yes, sir.
I'm an engineer. I've got a number of questions.
Techie questions. Hardware?
Questions.
Hardware or software?
Utilization is one question. So
Okay.
this is a one-way system, right? The vehicles only go around the loop one way.
Correct.
So if you want to get to the station behind you, you have to get on and go around the loop.
Right.
Now,
And that will-
at 30 miles an hour and however many miles, it's what, 7 to 8 minutes to do that?
6 minutes round for a you know, for the 4-mile trip around the big loop. Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, 5 or 6 minutes, that's not too bad. The other thing is, you've got 22,000 users, 60 million costs, so that's about $3,000 per user just to build it.
Okay.
And
Potential user anyway.
potential user. And you've got these residential areas in there, and if they try and use this to get to BART, to get to work in the morning, is there going to be serious backups during the rush hour times?
I hope so. I hope so, because that indicates that people are interested in using the system. Kind of like currently, people are interested in using automobiles on Montague Expressway, and it's backed up. However, and Montague has just been expanded by another lane on each side, kind of a deal. So they're trying to deal with their capacity issues. Here is a lot easier to deal with the capacity issues because essentially we'll just be adding some additional cabs. Because the cab, you know, is maximum 6 minutes from origin to destination, and more likely half that.
Not at an average of 30 miles an hour, because that's 2 miles, a mile every 2 minutes, right?
Okay, I'll buy that.
And it's a 4-mile loop.
Actually, the big one is 3 miles,
Okay,
and the small one is 1.5 miles.
okay, so just to get around the big loop, then
3 miles times 2 is 6 minutes?
6 minutes, okay.
Okay.
All right, so it's pretty quick.
Okay, yeah.
Um,
And once it drops off, you know, then it can be, that big cab can be redirected back to wherever the demand is.
So, you know, the question is, if you've got a station in a residential area and there's a lot of people trying to get out of that area when it's time to go to work, how fast do you think you can move cars through the...
So the capacity of the
Off.
guideway, let's take a look here. Maybe I could do this way.
The other thing is, will there be the ability to share cars if people are trying to get from the residential area to a BART station? You know, can a bunch of people pile in, or does it have to be one person if they're traveling by themselves?
Generally speaking, it's going to be like personal cars in that I'm usually in my car by myself. A significant percentage of the time I'm in my car with my wife. and almost 0% any other combination.
Okay.
Now, if you happen to know your friend Joe Blow, happened that you met him maybe earlier, whatever, and he wants to share the cab with you and you're cool with it, then good, you're good, you guys are good to go. Go ahead and share the cab. It'll cost you the same amount, 0, hopefully. Okay, so we are looking for capacity. Let's see if I can do this. This. Right here. Oh, that means I've got to bring up my...
Yeah, I think the JPG or PNG.
Okay, so here's some numbers and some stuff, and most folks don't ask about a rush from the neighborhood. They ask about a rush at the BART station. When the BART comes down, it's got 10 cabs, 10 cars, and it disgorges 250 people at a shot. How are we going to deal with all that? Well, first off, not all 250 are going to get on this system. But the numbers indicate that if we've got 7 berths per station, seems to be about the kind of the tipping point where you can get your maximum flow through with your least amount of weight kind of a deal. We're talking about putting 2 stations at the BART complex there, the transit hub, to alleviate that kind of a problem. If it's not enough, we just add another station and another 7 berths. These are some various numbers. I don't know if it's worth taking a look at those. Let's see, but we've got a number of different outfits that say, hey, we should be able to get 5,000 vehicles per hour on a guideway, for example. That's kind of like the maximum, and then of course you multiply that by the number of occupants, which if it's like an automobile, it would be 1.1, so there's a small increment there. This gives you another idea of how things, where PRT fits into the capacity story. Essentially we're talking about how many passengers you can move per hour in a direction kind of a thing. And we've got heavy rail, subway stuff. BART's a good example, where you could be talking about 50,000 passengers per hour that you could move with that technology. Now, they're only anticipating 50,000 riders per day on the BART borough. That's the section of BART, otherwise known as BART Extension Phase 2, that is going to be going from the Berryessa station underground to Diridon station and then up to the Santa Clara Caltrain station. The BART borough is capable of handling 50,000 per hour, but they only expect 50,000 customers per day. So to my mind, that's way over. Not to mention the $5.5 billion price tag they put on it nowadays. Now PRT on the other hand is, got a maximum of about 5,000. So it hasn't got the same capacity, but then it hasn't got the same cost factor to it. Let's see if we got anything else interesting. I think there's a comment about, here's a similar kind of a picture in terms of capacity. What about crowds? Ooh. Yeah, if I had worked on a link here, internet link, we might actually look at this video. But if you want to, you can check it out. It's basically just a matter of adding guideway and adding stations to deal with added traffic. Obviously, the first thing is going to be add cabs, because I'm talking about doing this kind of like, let's just start with 2 cabs per station, which is only a total of 24 cabs to move people around the system. I anticipate that there's going to be backups and people are going to say, hey, this is wonderful, I want to use this more. I'm getting angry that I have to wait for 3 minutes for a cab to be available nowadays, or 5 minutes. Because I've never used the bus in this town where the headways are 15, 20, and 30 minutes. So I'm disgusted with this 5-minute thing that I have to wait to get a new cab. Anyway, so I anticipate we'll get more cabs as things roll along. But eventually, you know, that we may hit some kind of a capacity. But given the way the system works and the way we can redistribute the cabs and the short time interval in which people are actually occupying the cabs, I think that we'll probably be able to deal with most of the traffic in this area for 50 years into the future with this guideway and lots of cabs. It's just we're starting out with a few cabs.
What's the different distance between stations, average distance?
Now, again, there's the distance that most folks think of in terms of the system is about a mile apart between stations. They think of a mile apart because that means that somebody that is smack dab in the middle only has to go a half mile to get to the station, which is essentially, that's where the transit users start dropping off. Quarter mile, most folks are willing to walk that to get to a decent transit stop. A third mile, yeah, they're okay. The numbers are going down. Once you get to a half mile, you're starting to break even kind of deal. And it's like half the people are going to say that's too damn far, and half the people are going to say, hey, I've got a scooter, I've got an electric bike, I can do this. This isn't a problem. And that would be true for a mile too. On this system, the stations are generally closer together than that. Probably in the neighborhood of a half mile to even a quarter mile in some locations, I imagine. And it's not because I don't think people can walk farther, it's just because there's lots of places to go here. Oftentimes the transit agency will say, where can we put our BART line? Where can we put our LRT line? Where can we put our BRT, our bus rapid transit line? And then they say, okay, what's next to those lines that would be an attractive destination spot? With this technology, you kind of reverse the order of that. You say, okay, where do we want people to come and go from? Where do we want these stations? And then we just figure out, okay, well, how do you connect the stations? And that's essentially what I did with this. I just said, hey, it makes sense to have a station here and here so I can get across the railroad tracks. That's why there's a station here and here so I can get across the railroad tracks. The Great Mall, obviously, the BART station, obviously, the grocery store, obviously. Anyway, I just picked these spots and said, okay, well, how do we, is there any way that makes sense of connecting these? And that's how the guy would decided the location, the routing. No.
Okay, yeah, I was wondering, you said that this was in operation for Microsoft?
No. That was the video that was proposing something like that at the Microsoft campus.
So there's no working model yet anywhere in the United States?
Not true.
What about other countries?
About that university, that's just something.
Okay, so let's see here. Let's go to...
So I would imagine if there were examples or models, that would be very persuasive.
Okay. 2-minute intro, 3-minute intro, deeper intro, mashup of PRT in the built environment. So there we've got some stuff that is actually real. The next one, the 5-minute look at the existing Heathrow Airport PRT system. So it's been 5 or 6 years ago, I think, that they built a PRT system. Now, there's different flavors of PRT. The flavor I'm talking about uses these small guideways, and inside the guideway is the actual vehicle. And bolted to the top of the vehicle is the cab in which the people get into. So there's a vehicle called a bogie that's actually trapped inside the guideway. And the system that I'm talking about, and the flavor of PRT technology I'm talking about. Now, the one in Heathrow Airport actually is looks like small cabs running around on an elevated roadway. So they've got a concrete lane in which their vehicles run. And actually they have anticipated dual mode, meaning that these cabs could leave the guideway and run around on public streets or private streets, you know, off the guideway kind of deal. That being able to run off the guideway, basically on the street, is what another outfit in Abu Dhabi is doing. And then there's a larger format vehicle that can handle, I think, 9, 12 people, and that's in Suncheon Bay, South Korea, to get tourists from the touristy intake zone across this environmentally sensitive area into this parkland area kind of a deal. Yes, sir?
Don't they have also a people mover type program like that in Las Vegas with self-driving buses?
I think that Las Vegas and a number of other cities are experimenting with self-driving on-the-ground kind of technologies. Those are actually designed to kind of be a little more loosey-goosey and run around in the midst of regular traffic and without, you know, specific.
Oh, what you said was this was, someone was talking about Abu Dhabi, you think you said?
Yes.
Talking about an alternative, or being able to get down off these. It sounded like they were going through normal traffic too, though. Maybe that's.
I'm sorry I misled you on that, because the guideways that they have are basically just restricted routes that they don't allow cars on.
Okay.
So in the Abu Dhabi situation, it's basically they've got the pedestrian level, and then below that they've got this service level, where service trucks might be showing up. It's a PRT vehicles just running around on a predestined pathway. And in fact, you look at the videos and you say, whoa, look at all that black lines that are going around. Man, those things, guys, they just go flat down on those lines just exactly. It's amazing. The bottom one, 17-minute video of the PRT-like system in Morgantown, West Virginia. You can see, you know, how this, you know, stuff kind of got started. They've got a nice history thing there. 15-minute Santa Cruz. This is like about 3, maybe 4 years old. I think it happened before the Suncheon Bay, and they show, you know, clips from Abu Dhabi and I think Morgantown and Heathrow Airport, you know, so it's bits and pieces, so you can see some of this stuff. And yeah, there was anyway, you can take a look at videos of various flavors of the technology.
So this Morgantown, Virginia has been operating for many years?
Yes, since
So how come that isn't used as an example of success?
Speaking to the engineer.
Okay.
If somebody came to you and said, hey, would you design this thing for us, but we need to start building it immediately, but you haven't really gotten very started on the design, but we're building it now anyway. Not comfortable.
No.
So that's essentially what
Sounds
happened.
like the story of life in Silicon Valley, though,
Yeah.
for engineers.
But I mean, if the Morgantown thing is working, is it comparable what you're proposing?
And are the finances similar, for instance?
So this is the deal, is that when they built the Morgantown system, they tried building it before they designed it. And as a result, they had a number of glitches and problems and cost overruns. They designed their guideway to be able to handle vehicles that were 10 times as heavy as the vehicles they were actually running. So it was like way overkill, way overbuilt. Kind of like the Barbaro. But as a result of that and a number of other factors, and it was first out of the gate and all the problems that come with trying to do something before you design something, the price skyrocketed in their dollars. It turns out, though, that if we use cost-adjusted inflated dollars and match it up to current stuff, and we look at their maintenance costs, because they've got some O&M costs that they're willing to share with the public, whereas these other private companies are not doing so. their maintenance costs work out to be about 1% of the cost-adjusted capital cost, even though the capital cost was freaking huge. So, I forgot what your question was.
So you don't want to use